210 Montgomery by Spencer Miller. 210 Montgomery. War Remembrances of My Dear Grandfather, Beau Murray by Spencer Miller. Before I left on my journey, I wanted to find out as much as I could about Beau. I found out much researching before my trip, that lots of things I thought I knew about his story ended up being wrong or not how I remembered the story. I wondered how he dealt with all the trauma throughout his life. I secretly wondered if I could survive a situation like that the way he did. I wondered what he felt: discouraged, hopeful, optimistic, scared, a mix of all these emotions. I know he had some hope because he wrote to Grandma that he wanted to put a house he wanted to buy when he got back home. How do you deal with all that additional pain? And then I realized that Stalag 17B and the war was not his only trauma, and that the death of his mother as a young child, that's perhaps a greater trauma. I remember being with him in an ICU room at Veterans Hospital in Columbia before a heart surgery. It was just him and I in the room. I don't remember what led up to this, but he blurted out that his mother had died and started to cry. I guess I never thought about that part of his life before, but I was taken aback by his emotion. I bet he held in a lot through all this, and I wanted to know what that was. This book is not arranged in the order Beau experienced them, but in the order I traveled to them. Prisoners sent by train to Stalag 17B all went through this train station, although I'm sure the buildings are different now. They would then be forced to walk a few miles to the west of the walk to the camp. I wanted to see the train station because I knew that Beau had been there. Beau had been there. I wondered what fear he must have felt. This is while the door opened on his train car after 3 days and 2 nights of it being crammed in like cattle, unable to sit, drink, eat, see daylight, or go to the bathroom. Beau said as he walked up to the camp, groups of people started throwing rocks at the prisoners. Stalag 17B, Nazi prison camp where Beau spent 13 months. Now just fields and vineyards. This is actually the nearest town to Stalag 17B, not Krems. Beethoven had a house there. Vineyards covered in frost. Silence covered the place just as the frost covered the grasses below my feet. I tried to imagine the voices from before. I tried to imagine Beau here. I wondered if a piece of him remained here and if I could find that piece. It was so eerily quiet. The farmland looked just like a farm near Slater or Marshall would look like, except for the vineyards. I saw a small airport in the distance. A building called a Wasserhalter, water tank, with graffiti was the only standing structure that remained. I went inside the building and then climbed on top of its concrete roof for a view. Then I climbed down and called Grandma Jean. Where are you? Grandma Jean asked, as always. Stalag 17B, I said proudly. I didn't cry that day until I heard her voice. A mother's voice can do that to you. I said out loud as the sun was trailing its fingers against the bottom of the sky, I love you, Daddy Beau. I felt sad and yet peaceful. It was a dream to be here, but Bo said he didn't want to ever come back here. In his own words, too many bad memories, too much pain. I feel proud to be connected to him, to be able to look in the mirror and see his nose, the contours of his cheekbones, his blood in my blood. His blood still runs and pulses in me. For him to be 21 and to be in hell for 13 months, I could not comprehend. There was a strong chill in the air, and I wonder how cold he had felt. Just how cold was he on a winter's night? I asked Grandma Jean how many years it took Bo to recover when he got back to the States. Almost before I could finish my question, she emphatically stated he never recovered. I was taken aback, sad. This is not the Daddy Bo I knew, but I never knew what really went on inside of him, inside of his heart and mind. I know what he said, but I don't know what he didn't say. And I have a feeling there was a lot he didn't say. Something I wrote on the plane to Vienna. I've been running from demons all my life, and now I feel scared and anxious as if I'm chasing them down for the first time, to come to find out some of these demons have names and faces and addresses and a story, and sometimes a common story. Every family has its collective cistern of pain and trauma, and I feel like I am headed into the center of this pain. Trauma is either transferred or transformed, and I go to the site of my grandfather's Nazi camp to bring to remembrance his trauma and pain, and in some way, some magical way, to transform that pain on his behalf. To hold his trauma in my hands, along with my own trauma and pain, and be a witness to it. Be a witness to what happened at this place, and how, although he left the camp never left him. It's a spiritual pilgrimage for me to find him halfway around the world and simply tell him, I can't imagine how you suffered. I'm a witness to the pain you carried all your life. And to tell him I love him and that I desperately miss him. A German woman walking a dog helped me find concrete foundations hidden in the woods. It was getting quite dark. I dug in the dirt for pieces of concrete. The same German lady led me to the local cemetery, which was lit up like a fairy tale with candles and Christmas greenery, and yet no one was there. Hidden in the corner, almost impossible to find, were two monuments to the men who suffered at Stalag 17B. It was so quiet and it was getting too dark to see. His story has become my own. The boy grew up to be his dad. The man has become his grandfather and decided to carry the mantle he carried as an act of love and grief. His story is mine. There is no distinction. I'm not sure what is grief and what is love, and what is for him and what is for me. All I know is that it has become a path to healing and feeling deep pain, the kind of pain that is too uncomfortable to talk about. The son was completely gone, and so was the great patriarch of our family. It is a great loss. When Bo died, I said, I love you to him, and he said, I love you too, back to me. He lost consciousness and went back to his time as a ball turret gunner, moving both arms as if he were shooting a large gun. I wouldn't have understood if Grandma Jean had not have explained it. This saddened me to know that these were some of his last thoughts. This is the main square of Linz, where Bo spent 3 days with his brother Roger after liberation. The Peach Building is Rathaus, or City Hall. This building displayed the Nazi flag that Roger gave to Bo. 3 flagpoles are there now, though I doubt they are the same flagpoles. But I did verify that this building is the same. I ate till I was full today, more than full, and I realize I have never been hungry. But he was. He knew what it was to be so hungry you could think of nothing else. Nothing but filling that stomach. A desperation of gnawing physical hunger that I cannot understand. All I can say is thank you. Thank you, Daddy Bo, for doing that for us. For me. Bo suffered from nightmares of the war all his life. They became stronger when sick or in the hospital during surgery. Grandma recalled to me once that Bo, when he first came home from the war, told Jean she better sleep in a different bed because he was afraid he would hurt her due to the nightmares. I witnessed these nightmares a couple of times. These are pictures of Mauthausen, the concentration camp Bo went to with Roger and saw after liberation. Bo said you could smell the rotting bodies for miles away. Bo said the barracks at Mauthausen were like his barracks. There are no barracks left at 17B, so this is the only example I have. On the left, the steps of death at Mauthausen. Steps prisoners were forced to go up and down again and again, with heavy loads of granite on their back. On the right, the outside of a barracks, my best guess where Bo saw the pile of dead bodies. While Bo was overseas, on the home front, Jean worked in a factory that made crystals for radios. Above, this is the first factory she worked in. It is the old Video Visions building. While working at the Video Visions building, she lived in this house very briefly. Second story, farthest back room you can see. However, her father built a room for her at her childhood home, and she did not live here long. This building to the left is across the street from the old Sam Gillian Chevrolet dealer. This was the second and last building she worked in. They also made crystals for radios here. She was the supervisor for the night shift at this location. Frankfurt, Germany, where Bo and his crew were sent for interrogation from most likely the Trier train station. Horst Weber works right next to the Trier train station. This is the Frankfurt State train station. I'm sure the building are not the same as they were when Bo went through here. After interrogation, he left this place for Krems in a cattle car, treated in the same way as a Jew would have been headed for a concentration camp. This is the site of where Bo landed. His parachute was smaller than the rest of his crew's, so he landed apart from them and alone. Can you imagine what he felt? To me, this is a sacred place. Where those apple trees are behind me is where the plane landed. It clipped the fence row of tall trees behind them and crashed into the hill at the site of the apple trees. This is the former mayor of Idenheim on my left, and now a mayor official of a much larger area. Horst Weber is on my right. He communicated with Bo and Jean since the late 1980s and started while he was doing research on the World War II plane crashes in his area. The church in Idenheim, of which I have seen so many times in pictures, appeared so much smaller in person. I asked where a prisoner would have been held. I wanted to see the site that where he spent his first night of capture at, and the townspeople filed past to see. Bars didn't mean much until you're the one behind them. The lower right picture has a bar across the window. I imagine what Bo felt that day and night. He said people cursed at him. He also said he was afraid of being hung on the spot, as he had heard that had been happening to captured Americans. I peeked inside the window, only to see a place filled with normal garage items. That other side looks like a large house with 4 or so apartments. I touched the bars, and I wondered if he had touched them. I looked inside, and I wondered what corner or place he sat at. The mayor said this is where prisoners were taken that were kept for only one night. The taste of an apple from Bo's crash site. Ironically, it was very sweet. When I met with Horst Weber, he had made a file of all of Jean's letters to him. It was a weird feeling to see my grandma's handwriting and pictures of her and Bo in a well-organized German man's folder halfway across the world. I hear him in I hear him I hear him in the sound of a strong wind rushing over a lake. I hear him in a carpenter's saw. I hear him in a family member's laugh. I hear him still. He lives on in my memories, in the deepest part of my heart. He walks with me on my journey, reunited with all his comrades of war and imprisonment. He now knows what it is to not feel the pain of war any longer. And I added this photo to help with the identification of Bo's crew that crash landed with him on that day, April 13th, 1944. Pilot Otto H. Brando, POW. Co-pilot Frank C. Shop, POW. Navigator William Mandeville, POW. Bombardier Robert J. Fetterman, KIA on a later mission, May 12, 1944. Bombardier with this mission, Kenneth Brown, photo insert, POW. Kneeling, left to right. All turret gunner, William Bull Murray, Slater, Missouri, POW. Right waist gunner, Orrin Albright Jr., Midland, Texas, POW. Radio operator, Roy F. Hart, Burbank, California, POW. Tail gunner, Lloyd K. Burke, Phoenix, Arizona, POW. Left waist gunner, Edward C. Stenzer, St. Paul, Minnesota, POW. Engineer, top turret gunner, Nago P. Young, Miami, Florida. This is from 210 Montgomery, signing off.